story short.
Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good to start the meeting and welcome everybody to the Cabinet. First of all, the first item is evacuation procedure. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once outside of the building, please gather outside the Yorkshire Bank on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door by which you enter the room and where the fire exit sign is. And if you need any assistance, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please also make sure all your mobile phones are turned off or set to silent. I would also advise you that the meeting, or part of the meeting, will be recorded for future broadcasts. So the recording has already been turned on, and that is available, I think, from tomorrow on the internet. On apologies, we have Councillor Pomfret. Give them apologies, and I think that's the only person. Declarations of interest. Do we have declarations of interest which are not already listed? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Item 4 then, minutes. Is it agreed these are a true and correct record? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 5, public consultation. We have got 6 people who have given intention to speak, all on item 6. I haven't got any other speakers on any other item, I think. So if I could just, I'll come to that when I come to item 6. We don't need to remove the agenda if something is further along, but nobody else is speaking on any other item. So, item 6, Councillor Aldington.
Chair. The information in this report is normally included as part of the Authority Monitoring Report. It used to be called the Annual Monitoring Report, it's changed its name now, which is usually finalised around November each year. As the Borough Plan has been submitted for examination and the hearings are underway, we have prepared an interim report so that the Inspector has the most up-to-date information. Part of the information is an update to the 5-year land supply of housing, which has to be done annually anyway. The report shows an increase in the supply of housing numbers, and this is a result of several factors. Increase in the number of completions, so those houses built within the borough over the last year, and approval given on sites not in the plan, for example, Eastborough Way. HSG1, some of the site on which is not in the green belt, has been shown as suitable for development in each of the previous versions of the plan, and developers have therefore chosen to submit and get approval and are building some of the parcels of land which make up this allocation. The amount shown in the plan as suggested for the site totals 3,331. However, the sites which are being developed are yielding more properties. This is not more dense development, rather than more developable area. There are 3 remaining parcels of land to be developed. The council have applications submitted for 2 of those, and the last one we have had detailed pre-application discussions. From this, the total likely number of dwellings on the whole of the site will be about 1,000 more than we set out in the plan previously. Applications which have been to planning applications committees are minded to be approved subject to legal agreements. So there's a site on Astley Lane which is about 180 units, and Plough Hill Road which is about 300 units, so those have been included. There's also windfall sites. So windfall sites are those that can accommodate 1 to 4 dwellings, and up to a few years ago those averaged at about 11 per annum. But over the last 2 years this has seen an increase to roughly 20 per annum. There's also a government initiative to get more housing approved, which was to allow easier changes for offices, for example, to residential, and they still have to gain prior approval from us, but this has increased numbers across the borough. Examples of this are Warwick House in Nuneaton Town Centre and the Tustain Jones offices in Bedworth. At present, these are due to finish in 2020, so I've only made an allowance. They've only been made allowance for the next couple of years for those. All of this doesn't mean we should deallocate any other sites that are set out in the plan. The second part of the interim monitoring report is around the 5-year land supply, as I've set out previously. The basic difference, there are two methods of calculating those. The basic difference between the two is how any shortfall in provision is dealt with. So between 2011 and 2017, we should have supplied 4,218 completions, but we only had 1,885. So therefore, there's a shortfall of 2,333. The first method is called the Sedgefield method. Now, under this method, all the shortfall alongside the provision for that 5 years, and also 20% because of persistent under delivery, would need to be delivered in 5 years. This isn't going to happen. Whilst there are several developments ongoing together, they will not deliver that sort of numbers that we're talking about there. The next method is called the Liverpool method, and it's one that is preferable. The Sedgefield method is the one that's preferable, but inspectors have, on occasion, accepted the alternative method of the Liverpool method. Now, the difference between the Sedgefield and the Liverpool method is that the shortfall for the Liverpool method is spread across the rest of the plan. So rather than it being 2,333 houses in the next 5 years, plus 20%, it's 2,333 houses over 14 years. As I mentioned previously, the sites which are being developed at the moment are not likely to achieve the numbers to meet the Sedgefield method. It's therefore recommended that we formally request with the inspector to allow the council to use the Liverpool method. Chair, on page 15 of the report lists the recommendations. I'm not going to read out the recommendations, but you'll note that the first one is members note the progress on the annual monitoring report. So this isn't a change of policy. These are just facts that are reported every single year to the council via the cabinet.
Thank you.
Oh, and sorry, just to say, Catherine and Ian are both here as well, in case there are any further questions.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all then, I just would like to point out the difference between cabinet and full council. In full council, residents have the right to ask questions of the cabinet members. In cabinet, a speaker has the right of 3 minutes.
Yes.
3 minutes to speak to cabinet, but any questions would come from cabinet members to officers. So it's not a matter of questions, and so it's to speak on this particular item. And as Councillor Arlington has said, this is not about individual site allocations, because that's already gone to the inspector. This is about the progress report on where we are in relation to this interim monitoring report. So the first speaker is Mrs. Shvetkovic, I think it is. Sorry, is it Mr.?
Yeah, Mr. I'm not Mrs.
Sorry, I apologise.
My mother is, but I'm not. Quiet. Okay, thank you. So during the 30th of August and the 1st of September, the examination of the borough plan occurred. I would like to go on record as saying a thank you to Councillors Golby, Gran, Wilson, especially Councillor Congador, for turning up and offering their opposition to the borough plan. However, equally it was noticeable that the chief architects of the borough plan could not be bothered to turn up and perhaps help answer some of the misgivings that were presented in the first session on the statement of community involvement. I feel, as do many others within the borough, that this is a sad state of affairs and that Councillor Adlington et al. Should have been there to account their actions to the inspector. One of the things that quickly became apparent during the first session on the statement of community involvement was that a full and open consultation had not taken place. A term which was used far too frequently by Philip Richards and Catherine Morton was, "We have met the minimum standards." Since when has the minimum standard been good enough? If you went to your GP or needed surgery, would you expect your doctor's minimum? Do you expect our teachers to do the minimum to support their students? Would you expect the emergency services to do their minimum? The simple answer is no. You expect their very best. The same high standards are expected from you, the council. The people of this borough deserve far more than your minimum. For this ruling council, even mediocrity would be a step in the right direction. The council was caught out in terms of their community involvement. A scandal around the In Touch magazine publication dates being changed so the borough plan could not be published until the following edition, which came out the day after the consultation had finished. In Bulkington, your own documents show that you intend to reach us through the Bulkington and Bedworth Neighbourhood Watch Forum. Was this really the only way to engage us? And also, where is the 17-minute YouTube video you claim to have uploaded in your documents? A huge concern was the fact that a working group was formed for the plan and not a proper committee, the difference being no minutes need to be printed for a working group. Again, where is the transparency and the ability for us, the community, to engage and monitor developments? If everything is done behind closed doors, it emerged that councillors have also been muzzled and have been kept in the dark. I and others feel the council need to rethink their approach to this community and stop treating this borough as if it is their own personal fiefdom. Be transparent and stop being underhanded. The people of this borough deserve far more. One final point. A statement was issued on the 25th of August by this council where they try and second guess the appointed inspector and get your excuses in early. My reply to that is, if you had done your job properly and submitted the plan several years ago, areas such as Bulkington, Whitestone and Woodlands would not have been added to the plan at the 11th hour. Thank you.
Carl Mayer.
How did this council find another 1,000 houses at the last minute of this local plan? It really does beg a belief. Mind you, it should not come as a surprise given last week's 3-day embarrassment by this council in front of the inspector. Catherine Morton and this council's hired barrister were really thrown to the wolves. Portfolio holder Councillor Audington was nowhere to be seen, probably due to work commitments, as this was the case in the council's own evidence when he missed a series of important meetings with other local authorities. Listening to residents' groups and landowners' legal teams, which included 3 QCs, was very enlightening to all. As these legal eagles pulled apart this council's 10-year-long plan in the making, vague unsigned documents seem to be the main topic in the duty to cooperate debate. The council will not be able to fob off these big boys like they do the residents of this borough. One big question was constantly being asked. Was council leader Dennis Harvey and his refusal to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, which at many meetings I've attended he is boosted of, legal? When not signed before the submission stage of this crazy plan was sent off. If I were you, Mr. Harvey, I would be very worried as the sharks are circling on the very soundness of your decision and the plan as a whole. It is not as if this council has not had enough time to do this plan properly. Glaziers the size of Greenland have melted since it started, remarked one QC. Even this council's hired barrister admitted that the council's paper trail was on shifting sands, which I suppose is better than the norm of burying their head in it. The action group asked for this unsound pile of tripe of a plan to be withdrawn until a proper consultation with issues of options has been done again. I won't hold my breath though, given the nature of these cabinet meetings being a whitewash for all in attendance. If this plan is found unsound and in breach of Memorandum of Understanding rules at submission, Councillors Aldington and the leader Dennis Harvey should follow Kelly Ford and hand in their resignations for the sake of this borough and its residents.
Thank you, Mr. Morton.
No questions?
What? Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah,
Yeah. What are the rules regarding Memorandum of Understanding? Can you explain that a little bit further, please, Mr. Mayor?
Well, it's to do with the St Albans case. I don't know whether you're...
No, it's not to do with that at all.
It's not?
No, not at all.
Oh, right. Well, I'll leave that to you.
Okay,
to
thanks
sort
very
out
much.
then.
Thanks for your time. Anyway.
Kevin Moore.
Yeah, transparency.
Give one. It's alright, I'm freshly out of hospital as you can see, so I'll keep this short and sweet. Councillors, has democracy become hypocrisy? 1,400 homes from Coventry is part of what I can only consider as a sharing is caring initiative. I ask you very politely, where was the consultation on this? And as an avid viewer of your YouTube page that shows the meetings, all of them, I can't recall any consultation, discussion, indeed any booked in meetings for the public to attend. As this is, as I previously mentioned, a sharing and caring initiative, what is in it for the great people of Nuneaton and Bedworth? Do we actually get anything at all, or is this just a political ploy? 2 Labour councils, Coventry, plus Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, working together and ignoring the will of the people. Oh wait, sorry, I apologise, councillors. Both myself and yourselves don't know the will of the people, as no one was consulted on this process. The good people of Nuneaton and Bedworth are not going to be fooled. So I ask you, councillors, to actually put this as a properly advertised consultation, and I will happily show you how to reach as many people as possible at the lowest cost, let people have an actual say on one of the biggest decisions this council will ever make in my lifetime at least. And just for the record, so I'm not misunderstood, it's called working together and being transparent with your constituents. And I will take questions.
Go on, Tony, I think. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Aldington said in his opening statement that this was not a change of policy in the paperwork that is before you tonight. I would say that that is misleading. For a start, we have a change of policy that we are now going to be accepting all of Coventry's overspill which they require or are requesting of us. And it is also a change of policy to increase the density on the housing sites. Those are changes of policy from that which was previously printed and consulted on. Therefore, I believe that this authority should be going out to consultation again. In the previous consultation, the housing numbers were in the region of 13,500. Now it's going up to 15,300 somewhat, if I remember my figures correctly. That is a change of policy, it is a material change in circumstance, and the residents deserve consultation. This report is woefully missing critical information, because it does not say what are the implications of increasing the density on the sites. Again, Councillor Aldington said that that meant another 1,000 houses could be fit on the HSG1 site. Now, if you increase the number of houses, does that mean you are going to be reducing the services as you state you want on your wish list of the infrastructure delivery plan? Will we get one less school? Will we get one less community facility? Will we get one less shop? Will we get a reduction in play areas which are planned? None of this has been mentioned, and all of which the residents deserve an answer to. And it is a material change in policy. This council has rolled over and accepted the Coventry overspill, and officers have misled in certain circumstances members of the opposition, because I have in black and white refusals from officers that you're considering increasing the housing numbers in the borough plan, and only when I confronted the managing director about this was the answer somewhat different. And that is a gross failure to consult members of the opposition and all councillors and access to information. What you are asking us to do is to accept that we will become bordering on a city, because at the moment, according to the council's own consultation paperwork, the density in Nuneaton and Bedworth is 1,600, just short of, dwellings per hectare. The Warwickshire average is 277, a gross difference between the two. Yeah. And you are expecting us to get to nearer 2,000 per hectare by the end of the life of the borough plan. And how can you expect, when we're not even delivering anywhere near the amount of housing we're required to at the moment, if you add the number of houses you are now expecting us to deliver, almost 750 completions per year. We aren't achieving that now. How are you going to expect us to achieve 750 completions per year under the lifetime of the new borough plan? Those are questions which have been missing from this document, and residents deserve answers.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Hardington, I believe, has a question.
Yeah,
Councillor
I've got two, if that's okay, Chair. First one is, can you just point me to where the density has changed at all in HSG1?
You said yourself the number of houses are going up.
I never mentioned anything about density.
You did.
No, I never mentioned
Can we
anything
not
about
have
density.
Can we not have
I'll
a
repeat.
discussion?
I'll repeat what I said.
The cabinet member has the right to ask a question, but nowhere in the constitution is it that there is a discussion.
If I just read what I said, because obviously Councillor Wilson didn't quite hear what I said. The amount shown in the plan as suggested for for the site totals 3,331. However, the sites which are being developed are yielding more properties. This is not more dense development, rather more developable area. Nothing about density, Councillor. So you've misled us there. The second question I would
He
like
asked
to
a question, that is not. He is increasing
sorry.
the density, and I have had that confirmed by officers. So it is Councillor Oldington who is misleading and should be getting his facts right.
Not at all.
Can you just clarify for both sides here that the cabinet member has the right to ask a question and Councillor Wilson has the right to answer, and that's the end of the matter. Councillor Aldington.
And can I just ask, the second question is around allocations. Is there any further allocations from what has been submitted to the inspector?
There aren't, but you've
There aren't
increased
any
the
further
density.
allocations, thank you. Which is what
Any
his
further
argument was.
questions to Councillor Wilson? Please don't shout from the back. We're trying to conduct a meeting. Any further questions to Councillor Wilson? Thank you very much. Kyle Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was first made aware of the Council's proposals to increase the housing target a few weeks ago when Carmel Edwards, the assistant to the planning inspector for the Borough Plan, sent all participants of the examination the Cabinet report. I don't want to get into why the Council are trying to increase the figure yet again. I think it is clear why the Council want to pursue with the increase. However, what I do want to talk about is why there has not been a consultation, or at least plans to have a consultation. It is a fundamental part of our democracy to let people have a say on local issues. In fact, as paragraph 157 of the MPPF states, local plans need to be based on cooperation with the public. This council needs to be more transparent with the people of this borough. No doubt the council will say tonight that it is not a legal requirement to hold a consultation on this increase, and fair enough, it's not a legal requirement. However, you must do what is right by the people of this borough and let them have a say on the increased allocation. Who knows, people might actually like the idea. I'd be surprised if they did, but regardless, at least you'll know how residents feel about the proposals. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, I would like all members of this Cabinet this evening to do the honourable thing. Please give the people of Nuneaton, Bedworth and Bulkington a consultation before accepting this report tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions to Kyle Evans? Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you. I was astounded to see in the Nuneaton News that the Borough Council are denying their increase in housing numbers in the plan to over 15,000. This council did not consult on this and have no mandate to do this. The land allocation is also flawed, with landowners' land being included in the plan against their own wishes, and other landowners saying that their land wasn't even considered, and saying that the housing sites were chosen with no justification and no methodology. We heard about all this on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, so it just goes to show that even the developers aren't happy, and neither are the residents. Even tonight we've had a Cabinet member denying increases in the density on the HSG1 site. Are we building a lot of tower blocks all of a sudden? Residents are not happy either with this plan, which unnecessarily targets Bedworth green spaces, poor consultation on the plan as a whole, and no consultation on these extra 1,400 houses from Coventry, which the leader of the council has promised that he wouldn't take on. First they broke their promise to the residents of the Woodlands, and then they broke their promise not to submit to Coventry. Surely this means that the Borough Council's borough plan is untenable, and that they should throw this out, or at least consult on the radical and unjustified changes that the Cabinet are voting on tonight. That's all I have to say on that.
Any questions to Councillor Jones? Thank you, Councillor. Right, come to the Cabinet then. Councillor Oddington?
Yeah, as I say, I'll just draw your attention to page 15 of the report, because this is an interim report that is usually done in November and is something that legally the council have to do. This isn't, as has been levelled at us tonight, a change in policy. This is something that is done every single year. The most important part of this is actually the 5-year land supply. Because at the moment, without a 5-year land supply, we cannot justifiably refuse planning applications. With a 5-year land supply, we have more, the council and those, I don't sit on the planning committee, but those that are on the planning committee have more of a justification to refuse planning applications. So I would just say this isn't a policy, this is progress on the annual monitoring report, which has come forward early because, as has already been stated, last week, the last 3 days, last 3 days of last week, sorry, was the first part, stage 1 of the inspection. I don't know if Catherine or Ian want to add anything further that's been said tonight, or they're here to obviously answer any questions that you do have.
I would actually just like to correct misinformation that's been mentioned in relation to my refusal to sign the memorandum of understanding, which couldn't be signed by us at the time, and that was made very clear by myself at the Joint Committee of Warwickshire Authorities. It was not a request by Coventry to take their extra housing. It was the fact that we are legally obliged by the government to agree amongst the, in the area in which we are situated, to come to an agreement with all authorities in relation to the housing needs of that whole area. Coventry, the 4 other districts of Warwickshire, which are all Conservative, Warwickshire County Council, which is Conservative, all pressed me to sign this agreement to take extra housing at the time. We could not sign that at the time, and I was the only one of any leader in Warwickshire to refuse to sign, on the basis that we hadn't yet done all the work in relation to our borough plan, and it wasn't appropriate. Others were at different stages. It wasn't appropriate at that particular moment in time for me to sign that agreement at that particular point. And I want to make that clear. This was, in fact, I don't think Coventry even said a word at the meeting of the Joint Committee. It was not something that Coventry was pressing us to take those numbers. It was in relation to the overall housing needs of Coventry and Warwickshire, and that we must legally do, we are obliged by the government to do. Any other members? So are we agreed then with the recommendations before us, to note the progress, that the 5-year housing supply statement be published on the council's website, information be submitted to the local plan examination, and the inspector be advised in relation to the Liverpool method, and the report be marked not for calling by reasons of urgency, and the information needs to be submitted to the local plan examination now. Is that agreed? All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there going to be a consultation?
Item 7 is Annual Treasury Management Report, page 22. So, item 7, as required by regulation and the CIPFA Code on Treasury Management, this report details the Treasury Management activity of the Council for the last financial year and includes the prudential and treasury indicators. The tables within section 6 of the report summarise the Council's closing net debt position and the loans held for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account as at the 31st of March 2017, with prior year information also shown. More detailed information on borrowing and investment activity and performance is reported in sections 9 through to 11. Appendix 1 shows the actual prudential indicators for 2016-17 compared to the original estimates. All the indicators are within the expected range and no prudential limits were breached. It's also proposed that the 2017-18 investment counterparty criteria is updated to include the Diversified Income Fund, which is a new investment product available to local authorities. Whilst the inclusion of this new product in the counterparty criteria does not commit the Council to invest, it does provide the flexibility for the investment portfolio to be further diversified. Information on this investment product is detailed within section 12 of the report. The recommendations are shown at section 3 of the report and on page 25, and Cabinet are requested to recommend these to Council. Are there any questions on that? No? We're happy to go ahead with that then. Thank you very much, and thank you to the
Chair,
Finance.
I was just going to say, as always, a very detailed report by the finance team.
Thank you to the Finance team for the work that's gone into this. Item 8, which is on page 40. The actual report starts on 42. General Fund and HRA Quarterly Budget Monitoring Report. This report covers the financial position for quarter 1 of 2017-18 and covers the General Fund, Housing Revenue Account and Capital Programmes. Sections 4 to 7 of the report set out the current forecast outturn position for the General Fund and HRA and key variances that make up this position. Appendix A gives a breakdown of the forecast outturn by portfolio. As at the end of June, the General Fund is showing an adverse variance of 52,000, mainly due to a reduction in commercial property income, offset by a number of vacancy savings across all portfolios. The table at section 6.1 gives a summary of how the Council's key income streams are performing so far this year. The HRA is currently forecasting an underspend of 127,000 at the end of the first quarter, and this is largely due to vacancy savings across the service. Section 8 discusses the current capital programme forecasts for both the General Fund and HRA, and proposes new schemes to add to the programmes for the current year. The revised programmes are included at appendices C and D. The revised HRA programme includes an increased fire safety programme as well as a budget to fund acquisitions of new social housing units. It's proposed that this will be using modern methods of construction and requires an exemption from contract procedure rules. Further details are given at 8.5. The recommendations are shown at section 2, and Cabinet are asked to recommend the revised capital programmes to Council for approval. Did you want to add anything to that, Councillor Jackson?
No, I think it's very important that we continue to invest in our housing stock. That's what we're intending to do, and I think the changes proposed in this report, borrowing money from future years into this year, will enable us to do that in an effective way.
Okay, thank you very much. We're all happy with that then? Thank you. Thank you again to the officers in all departments, but particularly finance and procurement for the work they've done on this report. Item 9, Coventry and Warwickshire Growth Hub, report of activities. This report details the work of Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership Growth Hub over the past year within Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough. This report and presentation was showcased to the Economic and Corporate OSP on the 20th of July and discusses the engagement, assistances and grants, and added GBA that the Coventry and Warwickshire LEP Growth Hub has added value to Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council over the past year. The past financial year has seen positives for economic growth within the borough. A few examples include business density increasing from 0.6 to 0.765, the percentage change of economic inactivity decreasing by over 2%, and a higher business growth in the borough between 2014 and 16 than the average for the rest of Warwickshire. 13.6% growth in Nuneaton and Bedworth and 12.4% in the rest of Warwickshire. A particular piece of good news was the Nuneaton and Bedworth Business Support Expo, which took place at Nuneaton Golf Club on Friday the 30th of June. This event brought together about 100 business leaders and business support providers to hear what support is available to businesses, as well as to showcase the positive news coming out of the borough. Speakers included Terry Spall, Commercial Director of Ariba Myra, Holland and Barrett, whose new international headquarters are now in Nuneaton, Andy Street, the Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority, as well as the Growth Hub. Feedback from the event has been excellent with an appetite for further events. Furthermore, in November, the Coventry and Warwickshire Business Festival will showcase the excellent opportunities afforded to businesses within the region, of which Nuneaton and Bedworth will benefit from through discussing with businesses in the borough and ensuring our businesses host events to showcase their excellent work. The Growth Hub is a valuable resource for the council, and we look forward to continuing the excellent relationships with them in the future. I have to say overall as well that our involvement with the LEP, and I'm now on the LEP board, has been very positive for this borough, and things are coming forward that show that millions will be invested in here as a direct result of being involved with the Coventry and Warwickshire LEP. Any members on this or officers? No?
Just like to say, Chair, that it's really encouraging to see additional jobs coming into the borough, something that we know is an enabler for people's quality of life, and it's really pleasing to see the numbers of jobs there, and I hope that continues to increase, Chair.
Thank you. Well, in the words of the Managing Director of Holland and Barrett, why would you go anywhere else? So, are we all in favour of making this? Thank you. Item 10, there are no OSP recommendations, and that we've had any other urgent items. So thank everybody for their attendance and declare the meeting closed. Thank you.